What's going on, everybody? It's that time again. The AllSooners podcast, episode 139. We're all together. It's the Postgame podcast. We're in the press box.
So late.
We're the only one. You're probably wondering, are they just doing this and disturbing people? No, because we're the only ones here.
I think we're the only ones in the stadium. Us and the cleaning.
Us and the cleaning crew.
We're actually disturbing the cleaning crew. That's who we're disturbing. So they're like, can you please get out of this dang
For
building?
the love of God, leave. We're up in the press box here at the stadium. Oklahoma beat UTEP today, as you know, 45-13. Brent Venables is 1-0. We're going to talk about it. If you're new to AllSooners, the post-game show is very free-flowing and relative to our midweek show. There's no segments. We just there's not a structure. We just go for it. Quick hitter reaction to the game that we just witnessed here at the stadium. Certified fresh is how Hoover likes to put it. You should have cracked your water.
I know. I should have cracked my Dasani water.
Which made a sound louder than my Coke I opened, so seems a little bit
That
off.
doesn't seem healthy.
No,
when
no.
your water fizzes like that.
Seems a little bit off. But yeah, like I said, Oklahoma wins today 45-13. They did what they were supposed to do. I mean, Vegas is amazing. The spread was 31.5, and Oklahoma won by 32, so they did quite literally what they were supposed to do today. Dominated on defense. Offense did some good things after a really fast start. Emphasis on fast. A lot to talk about, so we'll dive in, but we'll start with Brent. I mean, that was our big question coming in, right? We talked about in the preview video and on last week's podcast. Just excited to see Brent Venables as the guy on the sideline, and we got that today. What did you guys think from what you could see up here in the press box?
I asked him if he was surprised by anything, and he said no, not really. And then he went into a big long thing about he talked to Dabo Swinney for a few minutes this morning. Dabo, turns out, called him. And he started picking his brain. Yeah, are you sure there's nothing I'm missing as a head coach, first time, game day? Is there anything you want to lay on me? He said Bob Stoops has been coming around, but mainly just for a fist bump. I don't know if I buy that. I know Stoops a little bit, and he's that kind of guy. He's not going to walk in and say, Brent, here's what you need to do. But he's always there for advice, and I'm sure if Brent would have wanted some advice from Bob Stoops. He's also got Matt Wells on staff, so I thought he was very effusive with his praise of his mentors and the people he's been around. And I think it really meant something to him to be out here today. You see football coaches a lot of times roll up their sleeves and grit their teeth and act like tough guys. Venables gets in the locker room after the game and gets emotional with the players. His first career victory.
Yeah. He
got emotional with his guys, and they were they said, wow, it was really neat to see him kind of pull that curtain back and show us a vulnerable side of him. So I think, and he gave a game ball to Joe Castiglione, gave a game ball to Joe Harris because, as he said, this is Oklahoma. They didn't have to hire me. They did. I'm very appreciative of it. So you could tell it really meant something to him.
Yeah, Danny Stutzman, after the game, when we talked to him over just in the Red Room, he basically was like, yeah, I'd run through a wall for that guy. Like, anything he says, I want to do.
I don't even play for him, and I think I might run through a wall.
Yeah.
Like maybe drywall or something, not
careful
a brick wall.
With all the off-season stuff we had with you as far as just getting back up right. Please don't run through any walls, boss. But, no, it was interesting. I don't know what I expected, right? Because Brent has always been that lightning rod kind of personality on the sideline, needing a get-back coach, all that stuff. And he talked about, he embraced this week on Tuesday in his press conference. He's like, passion is what I bring to the table. I was never the most athletic guy at K-State when I was a linebacker. That's what I brought to the table. So it was always going to be there. How much of that we were going to see against UTEP in a game that should have never been in the balance and wasn't ever in the balance, I'm not sure. So I kind of defaulted to the second point, which he talked about on Tuesday, which was, by nature, he's a whiteboard guy, right? He wants to be over there drawing up plays, saying, this is what we did wrong, we need to make this adjustment. And after the first defensive drive, Brent Venables was over on the sideline in the middle of the defensive huddle on the whiteboard. But after that, he was making the little minor adjustments that any head coach makes. You see, Saban, Kirby Smart. I'm thinking like defensive head coaches that make those little tweaks and stuff as far as pointing stuff out on the field. But he seemed to patrol the sidelines and embrace kind of the CEO role. So that was something that I was really interested in. I don't know how much on the broadcast, if you weren't in the stadium, they were showing that or not showing that. But that was the most interesting thing to me. And really after that first drive, he let Jeff Lebby obviously do his thing.
Yeah.
And he kind of let Chavis and Todd Bates and Jay Valai figure their side of things out as far as making those defensive adjustments.
He needed a get-back coach. He needed it a few times. I saw at least twice him get out there and jumping on David Agüebu or something, and some poor like I don't know who the guy was, and he was like, Brent, get back, and Venables had to kind of give him like, I got it, one of those.
After it was like the second defensive snap, Brent Venables was at the numbers, like pointing something to Woody Washington, and the ref was just like,
come on.
UTEP isn't even close. Like, we haven't really set the ball yet, so this is like really an issue, and you're not screaming at Woody, you're not yelling at ref, but like, hey, can we get back on the sideline?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was cool to see, and he felt like he was very, in a totally different way, but similar at the same time, of Bob in the Alamo Bowl. The way that Bob kind of walked around the field and kind of felt like he was soaking it in a little bit, and even in pregame and stuff. I kind of feel like Brent did a similar thing, but totally different points. For Bob, it was last game, and I know it. Brent obviously was just the first of what we all assume will be many, many games at this stadium. So that was kind of cool. Even when he came out of the tunnel and put the headset on for the first time and everything, it was like it felt like you were seeing something of note. So it was cool and a good start for Brent in Oklahoma. So obviously, I mean, what everybody wanted to see and what Oklahoma fans were really excited about was a defense that they could be excited about and proud of. And it's just one game, and UTEP's not very good, which we talked about on the midweek show and all that good stuff. But they look pretty good, I thought. I mean, they swarmed the football. They made big hits. Danny Stutzman with that huge lick. Did force a late turnover. I mean, I think as far as, game one, pretty good start.
6 tackles, 6 quarterback sacks.
You got to love that.
Handful of tackles for loss. They got after the quarterback today. I thought the UTEP quarterback was tough and gritty and hard-nosed and just trying his best, Gavin Hardison. And it just, he was throwing the ball on time and he was a lot of checkdowns. I'm sure coaches are not liking those little 5-yard dinks and dunks. Defensive coaches are hating those, but you give those guys that pass because you don't want them going over the top. Oklahoma defensive backs have been known in the past 5 to 8 years to be beaten over the top. That didn't happen today. Not I think one time maybe.
2 plays of 24 yards,
Yeah.
2 plays of 15 yards in the passing game, and that's
it.
As far as 15 yards.
I can think of the one. It was Kendall Dennis, who's obviously a guy lower on the depth chart. That he kind of let the receivers kind of get behind him on the sideline. Other than that, I mean,
they played a lot of defensive backs in the second half, especially. It was really hot out here today, really humid, about 40% humidity, 96 degrees. So guys were tired, and it's been a buildup. It's been an emotional buildup. You get to this point, and you're emotionally, physically exhausted. And I think a lot of guys were today. But, for the most part, a lot to be encouraged about by the defensive backs, by the pass rush. Reggie Grimes himself had 2.5 sacks. Told us after the game his grandmother got a diagnosis, second cancer diagnosis in April, so he went out there and played for her because she came to his game today instead of doing chemo. She's put off a chemo treatment so she could come to his game today. And he's like, that's my mama, and I'm going to play for her. So it was really emotional, really touching moment to know that he did that. Guys, I thought the defense was, I'm not going to say fantastic like Brent Venables. I would say they got a little bit to work on, some room to improve, but a lot of encouragement coming from this game.
Yeah, it seemed even more basic and vanilla than the spring game. Weirdly enough, as far as what they threw out there. Ted Roof after the game was like, we intentionally played a ton of zone because the only thing that they felt like they could hurt them was getting beat over the top. And you saw that that tease itself out in kind of the rushing numbers. Obviously, when they've only got 31 rushing yards total at the end of the game, UTEP. Oklahoma took that away completely, and UTEP very early said, screw it, we're not going to be able to run on this team. The only path to victory or even hanging around is going to be dinking and dunking and all that stuff. And where it really got quote-unquote bad, the worst stretch of the game was in that second quarter, I thought. That's when, like you mentioned, Hoove, a lot of guys were rotated in. But also, I looked up, and at that point, after Oklahoma went up 21-0 and then had the 2 punts, by virtue of Oklahoma's first 3 drives being basically 3.5 minutes total of time off the clock, and those 2 quick punts, UTEP had a 17.5 minutes to 5.5 minutes time of possession advantage.
Yeah.
we're
So that's
down 21-0.
Yeah, and they're down 21-0. So it's like it's not necessarily a bad thing.
I think it was 21-3 at that point.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, and so it was one of those things where it's like, okay, you take the 21 points, you would wish your offense didn't go 3 and out, which is stuff that they'll address, and we'll get to that later. But it's also like, okay, to a certain extent, they just need to rotate those guys in and survive in game 1 when none of these guys are anyone that this staff recruited outside of transfer portal got like.
Right.
As far as that would have crippled an OU defense a year ago, and then that's exactly what happened to let Tulane back in the game in the opener last year. How did they respond? Brent Venables talked about it. They came out in the second half, 3 and out, punt, 3 and out, and then when it was total backups, UTEP started moving the ball again. UTEP's backup quarterback was in the game. So I think that kind of showed you that the foundation's there for them to grow and be like really good 2 or 3 years from now. And it's kind of remained to be seen until they really get tested what they're going to be this year.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Tulane. Like last year, we were doing the post-game wrap, which is on AllSooners.com, who accidentally referred to the game as Tulane instead of UTEP, and we gave them a hard time for that. But there was a stretch there where it felt a little Tulane-y. It was like, okay, UTEP they're kind of in this. Like, this is a game right now. It was 21-10, and it was I don't want to say dicey, but UTEP was in it for a minute there, and the way they respond to that, I think Oklahoma fans got to love that because that's something that you haven't seen. I mean, we talked about it in the midweek show. The last 2 times OU's been big favorites like this against FBS teams. It didn't go well at all. Tulane last year in Army, and it really felt like in this game, UTEP got a little momentum, a little life, and they extinguished it. They scored, they built on it, and this game was never in doubt in the second half, which is, I think if you're an Oklahoma fan, you're saying, thank you. Like, we needed that.
Well, not only did they score, guys, if you remember back, what did Oklahoma do on that last drive of the first half, that last scoring drive? They ran the football. How many times over the last 5 years, frankly, have we seen an Oklahoma team race out to a lead, a team kind of get back into the game, and then suddenly it becomes an air raid fest on both sides of the field. The second half ends up being 2.5 hours long, and if OU's not executing through the passing game, that's where things get really dicey. To have that shift, that's everything everyone talked about all offseason. Jeff Lebby's an offensive line guy. He wants to run the football. How did they pull this thing out of a nosedive? They ran the football.
Yeah. I think, too, that reminds me of something that Jeff Lebby said in postgame. I think has got to be, just like if you're an OU fan, you're like, ooh, I like that, is he talked about how his offense, because I can't remember the exact question. I think it was something in the area of how much they ran the ball down the stretch. He talked about how the last 14 snaps they ran the ball, and he was saying, the situation in the game will dictate what we do. Jeff Lebby's very not boxed into any one way of doing it. How the game is going, the situation, what's working, and I think Oklahoma fans are going to like that because sometimes it felt like, especially last year, like you're saying, Ryan, they got very boxed into kind of throwing at every play when it didn't make sense or whatever, and it got bogged down a little bit today. I'd say a couple 3 and outs, but good responses.
One of the things I said in the post-game wrap-up video, AllSooners.com,
it's there,
is 3 words: tempo, tempo, tempo. The first 3 drives were straight speed. I mean, pedal to the metal, fast as you can go. Just a few seconds between each snap, just enough time to barely wonder what happened. Okay, how far was that gain? 23 yards or was it 24 yards? They've already snapped the ball on the next play.
As a guy shooting highlights, that's very difficult, by the way. I don't have time to, I try to cap the plays that are good, and, I just don't have time out there.
No cap.
They're getting back up, they're ready to snap, and I'm not ready for the next play. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
The spring game broke me in for today, though. I handled it much better today than the spring game.
The fact that that tempo was so effective that Tulane had no answer, 21-0 out of the box, 5 minutes left in the first quarter, and then you go 3 and out. That put the defense in a bad spot, and I think Jeff Lebby probably heard from Brent Venables at some point. I've heard offensive coordinators in the past say things like, "Yeah, I didn't ever have to worry about that before. Now that I'm a head coach, I have to think about what the defense is going through." So Venables is probably a defensive guy going, "Hey, slow it down a little bit. Give our defense time to breathe."
Yeah, I was gonna ask you guys that, and I'll do it now since it's come up. Is it sustainable playing offense this way? Where it is so extreme at times of. Okay, UTEP has had the ball, and it's UTEP today. It's not Texas or Baylor or something. They've had the ball 4 times as much as we have on the clock. Can can you go through a whole season that way? I guess that was one of my big questions of the day, because there was a point in the second half where it was like 13 minutes to 30 or something crazy numbers, and you wonder if over the course of a season if you can continue to win that way.
It's a good question. The final tally was 38.5 to 21.5. Is it sustainable against somebody like Texas in the Cotton Bowl?
I mean, for scoring, you're
when
scoring.
They're running the football with Bijan Robinson, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Probably not. I think over the course of the long haul of the season, I think it is, though, because you're hitting people quicker than they're ready for it. You're putting the ball in the end zone. If you're going tempo and not putting the ball in the end zone, you better rethink your life.
Well, I also think, too,
Yeah.
while the offenses they're going to face are going to get a lot better, awesome moment for a guy like Gavin Freeman, right?
Yeah.
Kansas State makes that tackle. That becomes a 10-yard play instead of a 46-yard touchdown, right? Oklahoma State makes that tackle. Baylor makes that tackle. You know what I mean?
The kid hit him pretty hard, though. Knocked him almost off his feet. He was able to keep his feet and regain himself.
But
Venables said he folded him like an accordion.
Likely.
But
it's less likely.
He came in with like the shoulder spears, so like wrapping up, where like Dave Aranda defense is going to wrap up, right? K-State's going to wrap up. You know what I mean? So it's kind of the give and take of you're going to still have those explosive plays, but I just am not banking on this unit yet with kind of the up and down performance from the offensive line, saying that unit's going to be 2-minute scoring drive 3 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To start 21-0 on K-State. Is anyone thinking that K-State pass rush isn't going to hit home once? You know what I mean?
As many times as UTEP hit home today?
Yeah.
Yeah, K-State probably looking forward to it. Offensive line needs to be better pass blocking for sure.
And they didn't have Wanya Morris today, which we talked about on Wednesday's show as a very distinct possibility. We don't know. We don't know where he's at as of right now. Brent Venables just said he's working through some off-field things. He made it sound like they're hopeful he can be back very soon, but he was also non-committal on that. So we'll see. I mean, that's a big piece of the offensive line. McKay Matoyer was out. McKay Matoyer was out for a stretch today.
Yeah, I love Brent's answer on that. The way I set up the question was, you had some changes on the offensive line today, last-minute stuff. How did those guys play, and can you explain what happened with the personnel? And I thought he explained it brilliantly. He said, he's working through some things. We're hopeful he can get back. But, yeah, Tyler Guyton came in and played first career start, played great.
Yeah, for sure. So it'll be interesting to see. For me, what I'm looking at is with the tempo, right? No subbing. You need to get it up and go. Be interesting if Wanya Morris is out there next week, because Brent wasn't committal, right? Either way, as far as what Wanya's status is for next week's game.
It's been reported as a suspension.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting because for me, and maybe I'm just an idiot that's obviously never played anything like that, but Lincoln, Nebraska, not a good football team. Lincoln, the environment, Nebraska fans will be juiced. This is going to be the last fun thing Nebraska fans have all year long, which is hosting Oklahoma.
That's true.
Did they win today? It was 7-7.
Yeah, they
34-17, I think.
Okay,
do we want to call it pulling away? They found a way to distance themselves a little bit, not make it look as bad. But that environment's going to be wild, regardless of how good or bad Nebraska is. I would want the 5 guys that are going to play a majority of that game to have been communicating in a game environment. And so that'll just be kind of interesting because it was a little shaky at times. And frankly, it looked like a unit that had a guy moved over to right tackle in the last week or so and is trying to kind of – so it's hard for me to even handicap how I really feel good or bad about it, because it looked like a unit that had been shuffled around a little bit. And as you guys mentioned, Rob Conjul came in and played a lot at left guard for McCade Metallic.
Yeah.
And yet Eric Gray goes for 102 yards, 6.5 yards a carry.
Yeah.
I mean, they're struggling on the offensive line.
And how long was that longest one?
35 yards.
35.
Marcus Major popped a 27-yarder and then plowed like 22 guys into the end zone with him on a 6-yard touchdown. He scored twice. Generally speaking, and then Freeman, of course, pops the long one. You don't expect that, but that goes in the rushing statistics. That's 95% of that is on the kid for making a play. A little bit on the blockers for helping him get there. But generally speaking, I mean, Javonte Barnes, 25 yards.
I don't know if it's been well documented enough how Javonte Barnes just injured a guy by running him over. It kind of got brushed under the rug because
he fumbled out of a Marvel movie.
He fumbled on the play, and so everybody kind of was like, this guy's hurt. Like, I don't know if people realize, like, Javonte Barnes hurt him just by trucking him. It was a collision, man.
They want physicality.
That guy's a freshman, too.
No, he's good.
Jeez.
He's fun to watch.
Very much so. They ran the ball extremely well today. Eric Gray, really nice game. Marcus Major looked the part, which is nice.
Marvin Mims catching 3 catches, 81 yards.
Is that not the most Marvin Mims stat line?
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. Can you get the ball to him like 11 times maybe, and he might have 300 yards?
With a long of 42.
At least this time it was he's not really playing in the second half. I think that too, after that, frankly, it was pretty cheap shot by the UTEP gunner on that punt. I think they were very, very just careful with, okay, we've shown Marvin that we're going to be aggressive and target him. Let's just get him to Kent State healthy.
Yep.
Right. What do we think of Mr. Gabriel? First start for Dylan Gabriel. It's one throw, but the first throw wasn't very good, and you can almost feel everybody being like, ugh, that was gross.
Yeah,
but he settled in. He was good after that. Obviously, he finished his day. I got his line here: 15 of 23, 233 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did throw a pick, but it was called back, so caught a little bit of a break there. I don't know how much the penalty influenced that play. I don't see. On the field, I don't know. I didn't see a replay or anything, but it got called back.
It was a bad throw.
Yeah.
Very, very...
defensive holding?
Holding or pass interference. It was a bad throw, got bailed out by the flag.
One in the end, no turnovers. Yeah. He was efficient, 65%, 233 yards. Just kind of a business, good game, won, on to the next one.
Very business-like approach, statistically and efficiency-wise. I thought he was sharp. Mostly, though, his number one thing you can tell, and I mean immediately, other than that first throw, which was underthrown, a little bit of duress, he was in control of the offense. He was absolutely in command. I talked to Eric Gray, I talked to Braden Willis. Both of those guys said he was absolutely in command of the offense, and it really stood out how much he knew innately. And listen, Lebby got here and Dylan got here, the 1st of February, right? End of January. No, start of January. It was the beginning of January.
It was right when Caleb went to the portal. 3rd, yeah.
So they've been working together, refreshing each other's memory about their year together at UCF in 2019. I don't think there's any question Dylan Gabriel's the right guy to run Jeff Lebby's offense right now. I mean, it is a match made in heaven.
Yeah, and Dylan Gabriel even said that it was really nice to go back to the sideline and pick up the phone, and it was Lebby's voice on the other end of it, right, talking up in the press box. He was, I don't know if streaky's the right word, because he was good for the whole day, but we mentioned that incompletion. Then he completes 6 straight passes in the blitzkrieg that Oklahoma had. Then he had 4 straight incompletions. And then 7 straight completions that spanned the end of the first half, started the second half. What really was everything's fine. It was just 2 bad drives. And so it'll just kind of be interesting to track that as the season goes on to see. He very much, I wonder if it was almost kind of nervy on that first play, because he did talk about that. I asked him the question after the spring game. The spring game was technically the largest crowd he'd ever played in front of. And now he set a new record here today. He talked about coming out of the tunnel, how he's you don't really see it. And then you step out into the mouth of the tunnel and you're like, oh, that's what this kind of stadium is like. You know what I mean? So I wonder if there was just a little twinge of nerves initially. Then he settled in, and then you had a couple of penalties. It was very efficient. When the run game's moving like this, though, Dylan Gabriel can be in control, very, very good, and not have an, oh my gosh, look at this stat line, because the run game did a lot of the heavy lifting today, and he had 2 or 3 really nice pulls himself that I was impressed with, to say, oh, yeah, that's a veteran quarterback. That's the difference between what you saw last year, right? As 2 guys that, in Rattler and Williams, who would get a little antsy and pull it themselves, because they're just young guys, right? I didn't see any of that from Dylan Gabriel today. It was all the right decision.
The way you just described that Dylan Gabriel experience reminded me of a shark attack. You can't see it, and all of a sudden you walk out and you're in it.
Yeah,
you're in the shark's mouth when you walk out. It's whoa, what happened? I've done that before on game day. You literally feel that, you're focused on the tunnel, you're focused on who you're talking to, you're focused on what you're doing, and all of a sudden you walk out and it's like the Grand Canyon or something has opened up. It's pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
No.
So for him, who largest crowd before the spring game was 42,000, I bet he felt it.
Yeah, absolutely. How could you not? And kind of to the previous point. Spread the ball around really well. 4 different guys with 4 targets. Mims, Willis, Theo Weiss, and Farouk. Really nice to see Theo Weiss get out there, make a couple nice catches. Had the one where he broke it up the sideline a little bit. Obviously, the guy's been basically missed the entire season last year, so I thought he looked pretty good. Farouk just had that one slant. You imagine he's going to be a bigger part of it as we go on, because he he looks the part. So you're assuming he'll get in there before too long. But overall, I mean, a good day for the
How about
offense.
Braden Willis, though?
You know,
3 catches, 2 touchdowns, and was just
I've been banging, you know, obviously Ryan's was the offensive line. For me, it was tight ends last year. It drove me nuts. They had these 3 tight ends who were so talented, and they just felt like they just didn't use them. And Braden Willis and Jeff Lebby said, I don't know, was that media day? I can't remember when he said it, but he said Braden Willis will be very, very involved in the offense this year. And right away, 2 touchdowns today. He only had 2 all of last year. And he had 2 today. So you got to like that if you're an Oklahoma fan. They got in the red zone, and they looked for the big man. I mean, what a concept.
Stunning.
Or over the middle. You can't stop that. Over the middle with a guy. I mean, Braden Willis is one of the bigger freaks on the team in terms of he is huge and athletic. I love that. That was really encouraging, I think, if you're an Oklahoma fan. But, yeah, I mean, they spread the ball around. Mims only had those 3 catches like we joked about, but, you know, he'll be a bigger part of it as we go. So, overall, though, good returns on offense. First time out, 10 drives, 7 ended in points, a few punts in there.
Especially for
3 punts, 3 too many punts.
That's what
Levy
said.
Well, and here's the thing, too, is that I know that they talked all spring about being really aggressive in the install, all that stuff. It's easy to forget that this was still the first time this offense rolled out there. Yeah. Like, there's going to be kinks that these guys have to work through. Even for Dylan Gabriel, like, even for a guy that's run this system before, there's still going to be a, hey, hold on, how did this go? Okay, it goes like this on a game day when you've got all those people around and everything's flying and it's not a practice situation where we can go, stop, no, this or that. One of those things where all of the penalty and procedural stuff, for me, it's like that has to show up against K-State for you to go, okay, this could be a real big problem. Because other than that, it looked like just a team knocking off the rust for the first time on top of new system, all that stuff.
Absolutely. Who, in your guys' opinion, I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, so I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. I was going to just ask you a player of the game. Player of the game. Guy who you just, this guy had the best game today or just, you know, stuck out to you as maybe the biggest winner of the day, I guess. For
defensively, Reggie Grimes.
Definitely.
Is that fair?
Yeah, 100%.
Billy Bowman tackled really well and hit hard and had led the team with 9 tackles. But I think Reggie Grimes, especially when you consider he's not got a heavy heart, but his grandma's in the stands having skipped her chemo so she could watch him play. She's on his mind. You know, she's taking up mental space.
He was
there.
Beasting out there, yeah.
And he said he played for her, so I would say Reggie Grimes. And maybe that would probably stand for the whole game, but certainly for the defense.
Yeah, I'll go with an offensive guy. Eric Gray, we mentioned him, the 102 yards, first 100-yard game at Oklahoma. But the thing for me that was really encouraging, if you're an Oklahoma fan, is last year he exclusively lived in the flats, it seemed like. And any time he was asked to run between the tackles, it was really a non-starter, whether that's the scheme, offensive line, whatever. This is a scheme coming in that everyone kind of circled and said, this is probably going to fit Eric Gray a lot better. And I think you saw that because a lot of his hay was made in between the tackles, making a cut, then getting to the second level and bouncing outside as opposed to trying to run to the boundary, running parallel to the line of scrimmage and end up getting, held up or anything like that. So I thought that was really encouraging for what he can bring. And I think you're seeing, Eric Gray was not a fluke having a couple of really good seasons in the SEC at Tennessee. Like, it was just a bad fit in a weird year last year. So while I agree that Grimes would be our player of the game, just to grab someone else on the offensive side, I go with Gray.
Yeah,
who's yours?
Braden Willis for me, just because 2 touchdowns, finally getting back in there, getting used. I love that. But, I mean, I thought the linebackers were really good today, too, if you want to throw those guys in there. Stutzman.
We're going to get that player of the game thing sponsored. So if you guys want to sponsor that, email us, allsoonersi@gmail.com. Hit us up with an email. We want some sponsorships.
Heck yeah. Last year on these post-game shows, I'd always ask you guys if you still felt like Oklahoma could win a national championship because obviously last year's team was expected to be able to do that. Didn't get all that close at all, obviously, at the end of it. I'm not going to ask it in quite that way because obviously that's not really the expectation for this year's team. But I guess just to spin it and just, to kind of find the right way to word it, do you feel better about the team after today? I mean, I don't know how you can feel worse. Or are you just kind of like, they smoked UTEP. We'll wait and see a little more. Or do you feel more encouraged after what you saw today?
I'm encouraged, but I think the picture is still incomplete. We can't get a read on – we don't know how good this team is by playing UTEP. But I think they play with focus. They play with passion. I think their preparedness is evident, their ability to adjust on the fly. you got to be impressed by the coaching staff. They've made some adjustments, and not every adjustment was what you would want. They still were dinking and dunking, and maybe that folded into the game plan. Okay, if they're going to do that, let's let them do that kind of thing. But young coaches, there's young coaches on this staff. There's coaches who are coaching for the first time. And, Miguel Chavis showed that when he ran out and tackled, was it Grimes? He tackled Grimes after a sack.
When he ran out of the tunnel, he full speed ran from the tunnel to the sideline. I mean, just
so that was him.
Like this
I
running.
saw somebody doing that. That was him, huh?
Yeah, that was him. Miguel Chavis was getting after it. He was in pregame.
I love that dude.
I was like, I tweeted, I was like, based off purely off pregame warm-ups, somebody might kill somebody today because they were hyped.
And it turned out it was Javonte Barnes that
Javonte Barnes. My God.
I think that – so I really came into the year with, like, little to no expectation, just not curious of what it's going to look like.
Right.
I think incomplete's the best way to put it. UTEP's not a good football team, and they had some success up front. Minimal success, but more success than you'd like against the Oklahoma offensive line. But that could very easily, like we mentioned – be that the personnel shift late on just didn't give the offensive line enough time to kind of get together. So if that's what it looks like against Kent State, that group, and it looks better, then you're like, okay, you feel better about that. I was a little most disappointed in some of the procedural penalties, like there was a false start that really killed one of those 3-and-outs. Offensively, you had the roughing the passer, while a bang call, and probably not what I would have called. It was still a roughing the passer on Grimes. You had the pass interference on Morrison, but like all that stuff seemed to be immediately fixed at halftime, which is again on one hand didn't love that, but if you immediately fix it and then play pretty clean after that, then I'm more than happy to say let's see what it looks like against Kent State, see what it looks like against Nebraska. So just pretty incomplete, and really I don't feel like we're going to know anything about this team until they need to beat a bad Nebraska team in Lincoln, and then let's see them play against a K-State team that looked pretty sound and polished in the kind of the few highlights I got to see of that today.
I said incomplete, and then hearing you say it felt like a little harsh. So incomplete might be harsh because we don't know, right? We left this stadium basically 365 days ago going, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
Against Tulane, 40-35. My God, Tulane's going to not only win the American Athletic Conference, they might get a playoff spot. Tulane is unbelievable. Remember how good Tulane was? Tulane went on to lose 9 more games after that. Tulane stunk last year. But they played like gangbusters against Oklahoma. Why? Because Oklahoma was not, ready for that Tulane smoke. Are you kidding me? Come out here today, spin it forward for a year, and UTEP was absolutely overwhelmed from the jump. There was a couple of moments where it looked like UTEP was trying to get back in it. So I guess all that is to say incomplete in the big picture. We don't know how good Oklahoma is, big picture, but certainly they handled their business today much better than the most recent season opener, which was last year.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely, I don't know what more you could really hope for. They did what they're supposed to. I had 48-10, and it was 45-13. So I was pretty close. What were you guys'?
40.
You had 42-13.
To 13 or 14.
So you nailed the 13.
And then I had 52-13. I was rooting for a pick six on the last drive from the backup. So I was like, the pick six will I'll tell Boss I'm not doing a prediction ever again. Sorry.
The most important thing about today is that my Oklahoma will go undefeated prediction lives. It would have been tough if they lost to UTEP today. I would have had a rough one.
You did pick Oklahoma go undefeated, didn't you?
Well, we're off to a good start. 1-0. 11 more to go to get there, and we'll see how that shakes out. It was hot today. I think Tulane last year was hotter, honestly, but it was pretty warm. It was electric too. I don't know how much you guys are able to get a sense of that in the press box and what have you, but in pregame in that first quarter, it was on fire in here. Now it cooled off pretty quick. A lot of people, there was a lot of dunking on OU fans today for leaving this game, and I got in on the fun too, kind of make fun of the student section because it was very empty at second half. But again, like I tweeted earlier, to be completely fair, I don't know if you guys could really notice, the side of the stadium that was sunny was barren wasteland. The side that was shaded, everybody was still there.
Yeah.
So
right.
I think it was
fans bailed pretty early on this one.
Fans bailed early, but it was very hot. I will say that.
Yes. to defend the fans a little bit, to take the devil's advocate side here, right? Everybody's mad at the fans for leaving early.
Right.
Walking from here to the interview room at the far side of the field, I had to step around 3 puddles of vomit. People were getting sick and passing out. It was that hot today. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. That was disgusting.
Yeah, I heard a lot of that.
So-
I had people, saying like, people getting taken out because
Yeah.
they're getting heat strokes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, OU fans, they set themselves up to get dunked on in these kind of situations. I don't know if today was that day.
The students are going to student. Like,
It makes no difference on them. That's what they do every time.
Yeah,
But
and I think everybody else just did the smart thing of saying, hey, buddy, I've got 2 friends that are under the west side, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Let's
Yeah.
all just roll in over there.
21-0. I've seen enough. Let's go. Time to go, kids.
21-0, like
roll them up.
6 minutes to play in the first.
So did you guys see the note from Mike Houck this week about Brent Venables and Bud Wilkinson?
No.
This was the
I don't think
most
so.
mind-blowing statistic that I've heard. I want you guys to think. Put the mental image in your head of Bud Wilkinson. Older, distinguished gentleman, right? When he's not coaching, he's got the suit and tie on. He's got the white hair. He's an older gentleman. When he left Oklahoma in 1963, he was 47 years old. 4 years younger than Brent Venables. Now put the picture of Venables in your head when he gets the job. What do you think of Brent Venables? Young, energetic, go get him, youthful, right? Isn't that wild? 4 years older than Bud Wilkinson when Bud Wilkinson quit. I heard that stat from Mike Houck this week.
Yeah, that's nuts. Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, I think, though, that it's kind of been – there's been so much talk about Brent Venables, first-year head coach. Brent Venables, first-year head coach. What's it going to look like? What's it going to look like? Because that's always the question. We've talked about this a ton. If you listen to national college football, right, everyone accepts that the coaching carousel is a crapshoot, and just because you're an elite defensive coordinator or an elite offensive coordinator, that doesn't mean anything. You could be a wide receivers coach who no one laughs off, and they hire you, and all of a sudden you take Clemson from being the laughingstock of the ACC as far as, you guys think you're going to win games, to like the only program that's truly gone toe-to-toe with Alabama, right?
Right.
I think we've seen, and you kind of seen behind the scenes, that there is a huge added bonus to having a first-year head coach that's a almost 30-year vet as a DC, things like that, because you saw immediately, I think that he understands the value of simultaneously letting Jeff Levy cook, basically, because Brent's been a coordinator who was admittedly one that got to be like the head coach of the Clemson defense, but also where he can step in and be like, and we need to run the ball here. That's okay with everyone. We need to do stuff like that. You've seen that in just how meticulously planned Brent has been behind the scenes of all the soul mission, all that implementation. We talked about the plans for the new facility that they kind of want to build. All that stuff. That's not a guy that's wide-eyed and like, oh my gosh, I arrived at Oklahoma. It's a guy that's like, no, I've wanted to do this, and this, and it just happened to be Oklahoma that had the infrastructure and because of my previous connections, got that first shot. I think it's going to be really fascinating to see how does that plan out in Lincoln, because that's an environment that Brent has coached in as an Oklahoma Sooner. You know what I mean? Like, you couldn't say that about the previous staff because the previous staff was a player. But the last time that Oklahoma was rolling through Lincoln, for the most part, maybe not the last couple, but you know what I mean? It's a stark difference, and it's just interesting. One thing's not better or worse than the other. It's just so much different, a different approach.
It is different.
So, Brent Venables 1-0. The Oklahoma new regime off to a good start. Looking ahead to next week, they play Kent State here, who was picked to win their division in the MAC. Something. They're playing Washington right now. As late as it is as we're recording this, that game's only at halftime. They're doing Pac-12 after dark tonight. They're in Washington. They're down 31-13 at half, so they're hanging in kind of, I guess. I don't know. I guess to wrap up, final thoughts on this game and I guess some early thoughts, and obviously we'll talk all about the Kent State game in the midweek show and all that good stuff. But final thoughts on this one and looking ahead to next week, which is Kent State coming in here.
The Cheetah is overrated. Deshaun White is basically a strong safety, a nickel safety. That's what today showed me because they ran a lot of 3 receiver sets, and he was the inside slot receiver, the slot defender, which is interesting. Guy has only played middle linebacker and will linebacker in his career. and he just flexes out and plays that. So he's versatile. Justin Harrington got in the second half, played okay, I guess. Didn't make any super plays or anything like that. I made the bold prediction at some point that he was going to take Deshaun White's job because he's more athletic and bigger and faster and stronger and all this. Deshaun White was fine today. So, yeah, we're making too much. We made too much in the preseason of what the hell the cheetah is supposed to be.
Deshaun White, they both ended up with 5 total tackles.
Harrington had 5 tackles and
did.
a lot less snaps.
And
so.
Deshaun White ended up with 2 QB hurries, though.
Okay.
Is that hurries or hits?
QB hurries.
Hurries, okay. And then, he had 2, and they both ended up with 5 tackles, but he did have the 2 hurries that Harrington did not.
4 solo and versus 2 solo. So, yeah, Harrington did have a little bit maybe more productive.
He was out there in the second half, and it seemed like
snaps, yeah.
seemed like there was a couple drives there where he was around the ball a lot.
Yeah. I'm just interested to see what this looks like, right? Because, again, incredibly vanilla defense. This wasn't the Brent Venables, we're going to be super aggressive and blitz the lights out. That was not that. I thought the offense was really good. It was just 2 or 3 things that happened. Like if those 2 punts had happened, one in the second quarter and then one in the third quarter and then one in the fourth quarter, I think it's a whole different song and dance about the time of possession battle and how does that play with the defense, all that stuff. So I'm just really fascinated to see now you've got another subpar to bad opponent coming in next week, right? So they've shown you can cover a 30-point spread, right? You've shown that. What does it look like next week now that you have another week to ramp up, fix things, and kind of move that along? That's the next step for this staff. And as they said, they're going to strip it down to the studs, as Brent Venables loves to do.
Yeah.
He's going to be an elite home improvement guy in retirement. Get him a show on HGTV. We'll see what that stands. But that's kind of the next thing for me is kind of cautiously, what does it look like next week? How does that kind of progress as this team moves forward throughout the year?
Also, not to be overlooked, the burrito curse they left with Burkich. Zach Schmidt made his 1 field goal, 6 for 6 on extra points.
Yep.
So shout out Zach Schmidt getting off to a good start as the new Oklahoma kicker.
Say no to the burritos.
Also, good.
Don't do it, man.
This went under the radar, but Turk had to haul in a wily snap on one of those punts, and athletic brings it down. Still a really good punt. Not a where he's in his own, on his own 15 and totally flips UTEP. That was his punt that landed about the 45 or the 40, but still could have avoided disaster. And that was at the time of the game where if UTEP had gotten any momentum, anything like that, little stuff like it feels like if this were last year, that stat would have went over his head and been a safety. You know what I mean? Like that's just the vibes that last year's team gave.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Turk had a nice little day. Only the 3 punts, but he did have a 55-yarder and he pinned 2 inside the 20. So you only get 3 punts at it.
Yeah,
that's not a bad job.
And the one you don't pin inside the 20 is the one that you had to haul in and all that stuff.
Save your team.
Exactly. So there you have it. Oklahoma wins 45-13. On to the next one. We'll be back on Wednesday. Obviously, lots of coverage before then, as we'll have. We'll get right back to it. We get to catch our breath a little bit tomorrow, but then it's right back. Monday, we'll have Jeff Levy and Ted Roof, as well as the players at night, and then Brent will have his press conference on Tuesday. All that good stuff. Getting right into the next one, which is Kent State next Saturday, back here at the stadium. First post-game pod. How are we feeling? What's the energy level?
It was good.
Very low for me.
I think we did okay.
No, for me personally, I'm very tired. I think the energy on the podcast, good.
First full-blown game day. I mean, we've been here at the stadium. We're not quite 12 hours, but we're approaching 12 hours.
Almost 12 hours.
So
add in half. What time did you go on the radio today?
I went on at 10.
I got in the car at 9:30.
So
and add 2 hours to my day. It's 11:30 right now. So that's a 16-hour day for me.
We out here grinding you.
That's
we
right.
do it for you.
Go to AllSooners because these 2 guys have been loading stuff all night. Videos, the podcast, obviously the post-game wrap-up, feature stories on Gavin Freeman, Reggie Grimes, game stories, Venables reaction. Everything is at AllSooners, so check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good first game. Good first game, get it under our belt. 2:30 is I'm not a huge fan of the 2:30. Let's either 11 a.m. and let's hit it, or let me chill till the night. The 2:30 is just right in the middle.
Next week we're going to be leaving here at 4 a.m.
I was about to say, this show is going to be like 3 a.m.
Real quick, everyone, Lock this in. Over under 2:30. When we turn this podcast on next and you hear us and we give the time that it is, over under 2:30 in the morning for the start of the postgame pod.
Over.
I mean, we started this one, and it was about 10:45 for 6:30 game. Next week's game is
For a
what,
2:30?
6:30?
Yeah,
6:30
for a
next
2:30
week?
game. It's, yeah.
Did you see that look just wash over his face? Like,
That would be like 4 a.m. by the same.
At least we got a ton of players, though. Being back in person rocks.
Yeah.
Wish we had done that last year.
Yeah, that was
fun.
nice. No, post game is a lot better. I mean, it
Read
slows.
his Gavin Freeman story and read my Reggie Grimes story, and that's the difference in personal interviews that we couldn't get on Zoom the last 2 years. So it makes a huge
100%.
difference.
100%. Yeah, no, it. Last year the Zooms ran at the same time.
Yeah.
What is that? So yeah, no, much better this year, and the coverage is going to just be better, honestly, from us here in year 2 of this crew together for a full season. So there you have it. 1 game in the books. We'll be back again, like I said, Wednesday show. We'll be back normal time, normal segments. We'll all be back at our separate humble abodes. But then we'll be back next Saturday doing the same thing. Probably right back in the same spot on an empty press
Yep.
box again. 'Cause
I like this.
I doubt there'll be anybody in here at 3 a.m.
Yeah,
or
this isn't
whatever.
bad. This isn't bad at all.
Not too shabby. So, but we'll
stuff.
be back. We'll do the normal show next Wednesday. This coming Wednesday, I should say. Wrapping up the Brent Venables and Jeff Levy, Ted Roof, and all of the breakdowns and all the press conferences from all the players and coaches, and previewing next week's game, Oklahoma and Kent State. So you can catch that one, all the AllSooners podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcast. If you have an Amazon-able device, just say, Alexa, play the AllSooners podcast. Also post on our website, allsooners.com. Click on the phone list on your phone, your tablet, or your computer. Of course, you can watch the video version of all the shows on John Hoover Media on YouTube. So there you have it. Ryan Chapman and John Hoover. I'm Josh Callaway. We'll catch you guys next time on the AllSooners podcast.